Hey, Shalom, Akim, Shalom, Shalom, Shabbat, Shalom, giving all praises, glory, and honor to Yahweh, Ba'ashem Yahushai, Ba'ashem Akakwadash. Double honors to the apostles and elders of Great Millstone for teaching us his truth, and salutations to the sincere Akim and Aquat that may listen. May the blessing of election be upon your house in these times. My name is Raquai. I'm back in here with another quick and Lord's will is always an edifying lesson. And for today's lesson, I wanted to read through this quick, couple precepts in Jeremiah, the 21st chapter, and showing how much of what happened back then is happening, today. The same sentiment where the Lord is using a different empire back then, to essentially punish our people. And this is one of the things a lot of our people don't understand, is the fact that you have the different empires, the Lord uses them to punish us because of our wickedness. And, this is one of the things our people don't understand, is because they think that the Lord is all love all the time. That's one thing. And then the second thing is the Lord will use these other nations to punish us, right? As a matter of fact, let me start off with this precept, and then I'll go to the chapter. This is Isaiah chapter 45, verse 7, and it says, I form the light and create darkness. I make peace and create evil. I, the Lord, do all these things. And these things that are happening upon the planet Earth, that happened during the time of Jeremiah's time, the Lord was the one who was doing it, whether it was good and whether it was evil, right? So you start to see the parallels between of what happened back then during the prophet Jeremiah's time and during our time also, because, there's a lot of similarities, because back then, just like now, we had our people basically paying reverence, or paying homage, I should say, to different idol gods, right? Whether the gods' names changed, that vibration, that sacrifice that they performed towards that particular god didn't change, right? So one of the things that was very prevalent during his time was Baal worship, and basically Queen of Heaven, right? So you start to see in these times, different gods that are being played out, like, for example, right now we're in the time of November, and in the next month our people are going to start celebrating Christmas, right? And this is one of the things that Jeremiah strongly spoke about, because he said, don't learn the ways of the heathen, because their customs are absolutely vain. And this is one of the things he stressed, because our people were burning incense to vanity. They were paying reverence to for example, Queen of Heaven, and it was like a lot of the things that they were doing. And especially you have different there was a particular chapter where the family would get involved in paying reverence to this Queen of Heaven, right? Just like how you see today with our people, what they will do around the time of like Christmas or Halloween or whatever. The father and the mother, they might, they get involved, they dress their children up, and or they go to the store and they pick out the tree, and then they get the star to put on top of the tree, and so on and so forth. It was the only thing that's changing, that's different, is the empire, but their behaviors and actions are still the same. They're still paying reverence to these other gods, right? And this is why the Lord used the other nations to punish us, right? So I want to get that in a second, but I kind of wanted to go through just to pull out certain, ideas and parallels between what is happening back then is happening now, and then there's no new thing under the sun, right? So let's read through Jeremiah 21. And I sincerely pray and hope that this lesson really and truly is edifying, right? So I want to read it in the Amplified. So this is Jeremiah's message to Zedekiah. So this is Jeremiah 21, verse 1, and it says in the Amplified, the word which came to Jeremiah from the Lord Yahweh when King Zedekiah sent him Pashur, the son of Malchijah, and Zephaniah, and the priest and the son of Messiah, saying, Please inquire of the Lord Yahweh Bashem Yahushai for us, because Nebuchadnezzar, the king of Babylon, is making war against us. Perhaps the Lord will deal favorably with us according to all his wonderful works. Right? And this is a thing too. The Lord does he will have mercy upon who he would have mercy upon. He does there are certain times where you see that he has done wonderful works for particular men. Like for example, when Daniel was in the lion's den, he sent Habakkuk to feed him, in his time of trouble, right? The Lord remembered him. But our people are not righteous. Our people are very, as the scriptures say, they are wise to do evil, but to do good, they have no knowledge. So this is continuing on in verse 2, and it says, Perhaps the Lord will deal favorably with us according to all his wonderful works and force him to withdraw from us. So this is Jeremiah's message. And it says, verse 3, Then Jeremiah said to them, Say this to Zedekiah. Thus saith the Lord Yahweh, the power of Israel, Behold, I will turn back and dull the edge of the weapons of war that are in your hands, those which fight against the king of Babylon and the Chaldeans who are besieging you outside of the walls. I will bring them into the center of the city, Jerusalem. And it says, I myself will fight against you, and with an outstretched hand, and with an arm, a strong arm, in anger, in fury, in great indignation and wrath, right? So it's the same sentiment, we're telling our people today. Let's get that word indignation. Indignation, in the etymology, it says fury, rage, disrespect. It says displeasure. It says to regard as unworthy, be angry or displeased at, because our people were they were, like I was saying before, they were very they were being a detestable eyes in the eyes of the Lord. They were not doing things that the Lord instructed them to do. So let's get a quick one here. Hold on. So just like how you see in those times, our people are still doing detestable things in the eyes of the Lord today, right? So, and this is Babylon the Great, the mother of all harlots, right? Because she encapsulates all these different gods that have existed in all these different empires. So all the different, whether it's woman worship, whether it's cat and dog worship, whether it's Christmas, it's Easter, it's sex magic or whatever, seeking out witches and so on and so forth. Our people are very much into it, and it might be glossed over as something that is pleasant, like for example Christmas or Easter, but our people don't know the origins of those things, and we're not supposed to have all these other gods before the Lord, right? As Paul describes in the Corinthians, it says that we're supposed to be I've espoused you to one husband that you might be chaste. And the word chaste, it means to be pure. It means to be untainted. Our minds, as Israelite men, we're not even supposed to be we're supposed to be chaste, I should say, as Israelites as a whole, because we're not supposed to be paying reverence to all these different other gods, right? Oh, so let me get this precept here. This is Ecclesiastes chapter 1 verse 9, and it says, the thing that hath been, it is which shall be, and that which is done is that which shall be done, and there is no new thing under the sun. Verse 10, is there anything whereof it may be said, see, this is new? It hath already been of old time, which was before us. Right? So just to show you the parallels of what's going on in this chapter here during Jeremiah's time, it's the same vibration, it's the same, rebuke, just like our apostles and elders and the prophets are giving our people that strong admonishment to turn back to the Lord and turn away from their wicked practices, their wicked behaviors. The scriptures say to seek righteousness and seek meekness, that you may be hidden from the Lord's wrath. But this is our people, like I was saying earlier, they're just wise to do what is the wrong thing to do, as opposed to knowing what the right thing to do is. So this is verse 6, Jeremiah 21, and it says, and I will strike the inhabitants of this city, both man and beast, and they will die of a great virulent disease. Then afterward, saith the Lord Yahweh, I will hand over Zedekiah the king of Judah and his servants and the people of this city who survived the virulent disease, the sword and famine, to Nebuchadnezzar the king of Babylon, into the hand of their enemy, into the hand of those who seek their lives, and I will strike them with the edge of the sword. He will not spare them, nor have mercy and compassion on them. And to this people Jeremiah shall also say, thus saith the Lord, behold, I set before you the way of life and the way of death. He who remains in the city of Jerusalem will die by the sword and by famine and by violent disease. But he who goes outside and surrenders to the Chaldeans who are besieging you will live, and his life will be like a prize of war to him. Right? So it's showing you, this is the judgment that's going to fall upon you people when you don't listen. Right? Just like how the prophets today are giving you the judgment of what happens, of what's going to happen if you don't listen, if you don't turn back from your wicked ways. The scriptures say to seek the Lord while he to remember the Lord. As a matter of fact, let me get it. It's in Ecclesiastes 12. But you start to see how the king, his behavior was. He wanted the Lord to deal favorably, with him. But look at their ways. Look at their ways. Look at their fruits. Look at their works. Look at the way their deeds. Their deeds are nothing but evil. Right? This is Ecclesiastes chapter 12, verse 1, and it says, remember now thy Creator in the days of thy youth, while the evil days come not, and the years draw nigh, and when thou shalt say, I have no pleasure in them. And this is our people's behavior. They don't, when everything is all right, when everything is curry and crisp, the Lord is not in their thoughts. But as you start to see when that judgment was coming very close to them, when they had the fire on their ass, to be blunt, you start to see that now they want the Lord to deal peaceably with them. Now when they were feeling a little struggle or heat or friction or so on and so forth, and then they start to remember the Lord. And just like when you look at, for example, like in modern day terms of how you look at I'll use Jamaica as an example, because Jamaica recently got hit by this hurricane, because our people are now going to be thinking about the Lord, a lot more, because they have lost their fancy estate. They have lost their businesses, they have lost their homes, they have lost their vehicles, they have lost all the substance that they had, as opposed to, turning from their ways, right? The Lord can send different plagues, just like in the time of Egypt, you know, the Lord can send different plagues, and our people only start to remember the Lord, when it gets very difficult, when they're in a situation where they need the Lord's help, right? When you read about in how our people, they were worshiping Baal during the time of the judge Gideon, when the Midianites had besieged the land and taken they were controlling the resources, then when they were struggling to find substance to eat or whatever, then they wanted to call upon the Lord. Then they wanted to cry unto the Lord. It shows you that this is our people's behavior, right? When everything is good, they forget. As a matter of fact, I think that's in the that's in Sirach, actually. Hold on, let me see if I find that. This is Sirach chapter 11, verse 25, and it says, "In the day of prosperity there is a forgetfulness of affliction, and in the day of affliction there is no remembrance of prosperity." So it shows that our people, this is our people's behavior. When it's when they in a prosperity, they forget about the affliction, right? But when there's affliction, there's no remembrance of how good things were or whatever, right? In their affliction, as it says in Hosea, they shall seek me early, right? But this is why the prophets is bringing forth the same message, the same mentality, to seek the Lord while he may be found, right? But this is our people's behavior. Let me go to Chronicles. This is 2 Chronicles chapter 36, verse 15. And it says, "But the Lord Yahweh B'Hashem Yahushai of their fathers sent to them by his messengers, rising up betimes and sending, because he had compassion on his people and on his dwelling place. But they mocked the messengers of the Most High, despised his words, misused his prophets, until the wrath of the Lord arose against his people, till there were no remedy," right? So this is, and even there was moments when Jeremiah was even, he was being mocked, right? But he had that fire, in his belly to essentially continue to speak the Lord's word, right? But just like what happened to Jeremiah was the same thing happening to the prophets today. And what do our people? Our people do the same sentiment. Our people take the exact, instead of, how they were mocked, maybe how the method of how they were mocking back then, what they will do today in terms of mocking, they will take that opportunity to go on to TikTok, they will go on to YouTube, they will go on to Instagram, and use social media to basically run their mouth, right? They would say all these different things about the Israelites, the Hebrew Israelites, right? But, this is the Lord's way of showing compassion upon his people. But it shows you the vibration or the vibe that they're giving off. They're basically kind of like the Lord is stretching out his hand, and they're just kind of like fanning the hand, right? So when that judgment falls upon you, it's gruesome, right? But they can never say that they never received the message, because in order to mock something, you have to be able to receive the message in the first place. You have to actually have some understanding of what it is, because you can't mock something you've never heard of before, right? So all these different, And this is a lot of the times it's our people, a lot of it's times it's our women, taking the opportunity to mock the Lord's prophets. But it's not they're just mocking it to their own destruction, right? Let me see if I can get this in the AMP. 1 second. So this was Jeremiah's complaint. So this is Jeremiah 20, and in regards to that mocking, right? And it says, this is Jeremiah 20:7, and it says, and Jeremiah said, "O Lord, you have persuaded me, and I was deceived." I'm reading in the AMP. "You are stronger than I, and you have prevailed. I am a laughing stock all the day long. Everyone mocks me. For whenever I speak, I must shout out. I shout violence and destruction, because the word of the Lord has become to me a reprimand and a mockery, and has brought me insult all day long. If I say I will not remember him, or speak his name anymore, then my heart becomes a burning fire shut up in my bones, and I am weary of enduring it and holding it in. I cannot endure nor take it any longer. For I have heard the whispering and defaming words of many, terror of every sign. Denounce him, let us denounce him. All my familiar and trusted friends, those who are watching for my fall, saying, perhaps he will be persuaded and deceived, then we will overthrow him and take our revenge on him. So it shows you the same vibration of what was happening to the Lord. What was happening to the prophet Jeremiah. The prophets experienced the same thing, that same, ill intent towards our people, an ill intent towards, their disgust with, seeing the men in the chief places of concourse, giving them the message, of repentance and coming back and seeking righteousness, and, so you can be remembered in the times of Lord's wrath. But our people's, they basically take it as an opportunity to fan their hand at the Lord's compassion and mercy, right? So, just to show you the vibration of our people, and just to show you how much of what happened back then is playing out right now. So back then it was the ancient Babylonians, but now you start to see it's now Esau, and he's coming down with essentially his great wrath, right? To show you that, he wants to put a grain of rice inside of you people and control you. He wants to magnify himself as the Most High, right? It shows you that what happened is back then is happening right now. The only difference is just a change in a different empire. Right now, back then you had, it was the ancient Babylonians, and now you have, Esau, through these different companies, basically trying to, get at the Lord's people, right? And he's essentially being used as a whipping stick to punish you Israelites, and you Israelites fail to understand that, right? So this is Baruch 4:6, and it says, "And you were sold to the nations, not for your destruction, but ye moved the Most High to wrath, and ye were delivered unto your enemies, for ye provoked him that made you by sacrificing unto devils and not to the Most High," right? You have forgotten the everlasting power that brought you up, and ye grieved Jerusalem that nursed you. So, our people have forgotten the things that the Lord have done for them, and the Lord uses as a club. The scriptures say that, "O Assyrian, the rod of mine anger, I shall send you against a hypocritical nation," to roughly paraphrase, because this is the way the Lord punishes our people, because they don't, they're very, very stiff-necked. They're very, very hard-headed. So that's pretty much it. I know I didn't want to I kind of just wanted to go through and show some of the parallels of, what was happening back then, and just to show how much of those same sentiments, the prophets bring in that same similar message, the mockery that the prophets experienced, the mockery that Jeremiah experienced, the mockery that even we sometimes experience. What did they say? They say we're bum camps. They say that we're homeless. They say that we're cosplaying. We're dressed as Power Rangers. You know what I'm saying? It's the same. That which is then is now, and there is no new thing under the sun, right? The same sort of message today. We're bringing message of Jacob's trouble. These things are gonna happen. Martial law and all these kinds of things. So it's better for you to be covered, by Yahweh Bashem Yahushai, right? But our people, they're very stiff-necked. So anyways, I guess I'll leave it there, but I sincerely hope and pray that this lesson is edifying. I'd just like to give all praises, glory, and honor to Yahweh Bashem Yahushai. Until next time, I say Shalom.